Hello, and welcome to my video guide all about Tetris Effect's Zone feature. Today I will discuss all of its mechanics and some techniques for clearing over 20 lines. Let's go over the basics. Tetris Effect introduced a new mechanic called the Zone that freezes time. In order to use it, you have to first fill the zone meter by clearing some lines. Based on how much you filled the zone meter, you'll get either 5, 10, 15, or 20 seconds inside the zone. When you activate the zone, two basic things happen. 1. There is no gravity, which means your pieces will not move down automatically. And 2. When you clear lines, they turn solid and drop to the floor, pushing everything else up. When the zone ends, all of those lines you have accumulated will clear at the same time. The zone ends when one of these things happens. You could run out of time and place another block. Note that if this is multiplayer, you don't get any extra time for your last block. Or you could get a game over condition, which is entering a new tetramino inside of other blocks, or placing a new tetramino entirely above row 20. So you should avoid doing those things. Now that we know the basics, we can talk about the more advanced 21 and 22 line zone clears. Before I talk about how to do these, I'm going to show some videos and explain what's going on. This white bar is row 20. As you'll notice, I never place anything totally above it, only partially above it. So long as any tetramino has at least one of its cells inside row 20, it's safe. This lets me fill in 3 columns of row 21 on both sides. Now I activate the zone and start clearing the lines. Once I get to 5 or 6 pieces left, I'm going to check for how I should finish up. I'll talk more about this later, but the basic idea is I'm just planning out what pieces I'm going to place ahead of time. Then I simply unpause and place the blocks as planned. That was a Tetris, named after Kirby703, who was the first person to do a 21-line zone clear. She was also the first to do a 22-line zone clear, which I will now demonstrate. You'll notice this is pretty similar to the Tetris setup, except I'm filling in row 22 instead of just 21. I'm still following the same rules though, so I have to use nothing but 3 high tetraminos to fill in the final few rows. Once I have that, it's the same as usual. Fill in the rows, and then pause when the time is right. When you're at the top of the screen, filling in the last few lines for a 22-line zone clear, you have to be really aware of your next piece. So what we have is an S. If I pressed no other buttons after placing down this Z, it would cause me to block out. Luckily, we have some options. We have something called initial rotation system, which means if I'm holding down a rotate button, while I drop the previous piece, the next one comes in already rotated. And as you can see, if we choose this rotate direction, it's clear to enter the field. Next is the T-piece, which is in a similar situation. Its default orientation intersects with blocks, but if it is rotated, it can enter the field. Now, I want to get the L from hold instead of using the T. So, there's an L piece that will intersect with blocks in its default or clockwise state. However, counterclockwise lets it enter the field. The next piece is also an L that will require the same orientation as the previous one. It needs to enter the field so I can bring out the T from hold. I want to use the T in my hold chamber, so it must be rotated any way when it enters the field. The next piece is a J, but I want to end with the L in hold. There is nowhere safe for the J to enter the field, so this requires initial hold system. If I'm holding down the hold button, the next piece to enter will be my hold piece instead of the cue's next piece, which is the J. Since I already used hold to bring this piece out, pressing it now won't do anything until the next piece enters. That's not all though. The L also needs to be rotated. In all, I will be holding down my hold button and counterclockwise as the T piece locks into the stack. And there you go. Now comes the part where I give you some pointers on how to do a curvatris or impossibilitris for yourself. First up is your settings. Make sure you have previews set to the maximum and turn on initial rotation system and initial hold system. You saw me use these earlier. Also, you're going to want to make sure your camera zoom is far enough out that you can see all the rows that you want above the stack. When you're building for a perfect clear curvatris or impossibilitris, the easiest method is to use a center 4-wide. This is kind of like the combo setup, except there's no 3 cells in the middle, because we're not here to do combos. Of course, we are here to do a perfect clear. The first part of this is not too complicated. Simply avoid placing any blocks in the center 4 columns, and that's it. Keep clearing lines until you have a full zone meter. The only tricky part is forming the top of the stack on the left and right side. Here are some ways to top off a 21 line setup. As you can see, they're not too complicated. If you just kind of wing it and try to make a 21 high flat stack, you should be good. And here are the 22 line setups. They are a little more complicated, and you will need to use initial rotation system for quite a few of them to make sure your blocks come in high enough to fit in right. Okay, let's say you've got a full zone meter, and you got your stack 21 or 22 rows high, and you're ready to go. What you do now is fill in your stack until you have 5 or 6 pieces left, and then we're going to do the fun part, planning out and then executing our final few pieces. A very helpful tool for planning out your last placements is the Perfect Clear Finder. I'll have a link for this in the description. Basically, you can just fill it in with what your board looks like, add in your piece queue and your hold piece, and it'll tell you all the ways you have of placing your remaining few blocks. What Perfect Clear Finder won't tell you though is what will and will not work inside the zone at the top of the field. Remember, we can't spawn in blocks on top of other blocks or place anything totally above row 20. I'll also include in the description this handy chart which tells you where every piece spawns in. It'll tell you where it spawns in if you don't use rotate, or if you use initial rotation system to rotate it counterclockwise or clockwise on entry. Let's see how to use Perfect Clear Finder to plan out our last few placements. What we're going to do is choose 5 rows left, because as you can see in the screenshot, that's what we have. I'm going to fill in the blocks that are filled in. Very exciting, I know. And we're going to type in our piece queue. We have T in hold, that goes first, and then O, Z, I, J, S. Now we're going to turn on a feature called Deep Drop here, which is not actually a feature in Tetris Effect, but we effectively get to make one deep drop placement if it's the final one. Then I'm going to choose colored output matrices because I like it. Boom. We got 12 solutions. Let's see which ones work and which ones don't. Okay, these placements are fine. Ooh, that's not going to work. We can't get this J to enter the field because it can only spawn in on top of the Z piece. So that one's out. Okay, fair enough. And same problem. We can't get this I piece to spawn in because it'll only enter either right here or right here. So, not gonna happen. Alright, okay so far, but oop, that J cannot enter the field because the Z is in the way. Same problem. This one should be doable. So we got T, do a little Z spin, set up the eyepiece on the left, hit the J there, and then throw the square in the middle. This one could work, but I'm not going to use it. The one I used in the video is something else. So let's just keep looking. That's a funny one. But no, the Z will not enter the field because while the initial rotation does let it enter in those columns, it'll be one higher because this is a 21 high setup. So the bottom cell of the Z will be in 20, and this next one's 21, 22. And 22 is up here, so that's not going to work. Same deal here, the T piece won't spawn low enough, and also that's the wrong spot. That I piece cannot enter the field. That square cannot enter the field. That J is too low. Alright, so there's one solution here that worked. This one. So we'll keep that in mind. Alright, this one looks pretty awesome. So we got a square on the left, hit the T, fold in that I piece, spawn the J, and then the S just enters right there. This one is what I consider the easiest solution, and is the one I end up using. So if we go through all of our placements, and we're looking at the IRS chart, we can see that all of these placements are clear of blocks, and we're not placing anything totally above row 20, so we're safe. Alright, that was a lot of information. If you want to go out and try to hit a curb tris or impossibilitris for yourself, I encourage you to. If you're attempting a curb tris and you can't quite get it or you feel stuck, you can join the unofficial Tetris Effect Discord server that's linked in the description. I read the chat there, and I can try to give you some pointers if you want them. Thanks for watching my video all about Tetris Effect zone line clears. I will be making more content about Tetris Effect in the future, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it.